Yeah, so exciting. Okay, let me just get Brandon in here. Invite Brandon and I. There him is. How are you?
Hey,
Oh, it's so good to see your face.
how's it going?
I'm well. Just 1 second. I'm trying to say something.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's got weird like noise feedback. Um. Okay. So I'm so excited to talk to you today because you are one of my favorite people, and you are also one of the first people I talk to or think of when I think of like growing your own food and reasons why we do it.
Oh, thank you. That's so nice. That's so nice to
Um, I know you have like a crazy setup, but like I was also curious like how you got all started with this. Like, can you give us a bit of a background for like how this came about for you guys?
Well, okay, that's a long story, but I'll slow it down for you just because we're live. But yeah, I always kind of like loved growing my own vegetables. I kind of grew up in like a Eastern European household. My grandmother always had vegetable gardens. I learned how to cook at a very young age, so those kind of went hand in hand for me. Throughout my school career, I was always cooking. Um, Went into college to become a chef. Did my chef training down in Toronto. Always worked within the restaurants. And then always wanted to have the best ingredients available, right? Um, and growing that was the way to do it. So started growing my own gardens. Got into microgreens actually, growing microgreens for health benefits. Other restaurants we use them all the time as garnishes, but it's more than just garnish, right? Because those microgreens pack a whole heck of a lot of nutrition, as you know, in such a tiny little thing. So that's kind of where I was inspired and started growing, just through being in that environment of having gardens, growing food, cooking food, and wanting to feed people. That's where I come from.
Yay. That's kind of similar. I mean, I don't have a chef background, so like kudos to you. I find, I don't know, I hold chefs in very high esteem from that standpoint of like, if somebody can make food, especially for like 300 people at one time, you know what I mean? Like if you know that the restaurant industry is a busy place and
Yeah.
dinner can be stressful.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
So like hats off to you, you know, like just that's also where I got a lot of my like we'll call it food training was being a server. And I was just I grew up in a household where like my mom might have like cooked things from scratch, but it wasn't always fresh ingredients because like shelf stable things are generally a lot more affordable, you know. So we would have like spaghetti, but every once in a while in the summer we'd have salads and stuff, but we didn't really get into growing our own food. But I did grow up, my dad's side grew up on a chicken farm and we had like livestock, but again, not a whole lot of like garden space. Like I do remember growing peas and then eating more peas in the garden than we brought into the house.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
but other than that I didn't really get much food experience or like preparing food until I got into the world of like restaurants and serving and doing that sort of thing. And I was more kind of keen on like how did you mince that garlic with nothing but a knife, or how did do that thing, or why did you plate that a certain way, or and I was just so inquisitive about it. And then being into like the health industry as I am, like being a personal trainer and a gym rat and stuff, and I realized I couldn't train a poor diet. That's what got me into nutrition. But growing my own food, like you, it became a it was more of a question of not necessarily quality, but like the freshness. There is nothing better than growing your own food. It feels so empowering, but there's nothing tastes better
That's
than
true.
like freshly picked lettuce.
Yeah.
When you're like, oh my God, lettuce actually has a flavor? What?
Yeah. It's not just water. Like
Yeah.
iceberg lettuce, like the wheat that I grew up on too, right? Like, but yeah, growing your own food definitely tastes like way different than what you get in the grocery store, because where it comes from, right? Like a lot of the stuff that's out there in the grocery store, is, you know, grown in California or Mexico or you know, somewhere else. It's traveled on a truck and, you know, ripened on the truck, but
it was picked way too early, so they had to chemically ripen it.
Yeah.
Because it was picked far too early so that it could land here. And I was actually just talking to a woman from California the other day, and she seems to think that like the world does not know how actually drastic and severe and devastating the drought is that they're experiencing. They're experiencing massive drought, so it's really unfair of us to ask them for strawberries when we can grow strawberries in Ontario.
Yeah.
You know, it's unfair for us to get their food when really like their water, their food should stay in their local communities, which is also why I'm a huge fan of just eating local. But growing your own is just, I don't know, there's just something so empowering about it. But then there's also, I find it helps the kids get involved. And I would love to know more about how your kids have gotten involved since you started growing your own, because you do have kiddos and I just have like nieces. So.
Yeah. Yeah, growing food at home has definitely been really awesome with the kids. We have a couple of tower gardens here at home, and
which in Canada is probably the best way to go, because then you extend the growing season. Like that's why I had 4 tower gardens,
yeah,
because I wanted to extend my growing season past like September. You know, we can really only grow from June to September, and
yeah,
it's just not long enough.
yeah, that's not enough time to grow. So yeah, we got ours and started growing indoors in our basement, which is also, you know, part of like where I have my microgreens farm. Is I've converted my entire basement, and it's pretty awesome. But I can't take you down there right now because there's lots of stuff going on. Oh.
I was gonna add, that's also another big reason why I did sprouts in the winter, because I wanted that sense of freshness. And I really do feel depleted, you know, when like it was almost, I almost hate the month of May because like things are starting to get green. Hi, Dave.
All right, my dog's saying hello.
So I know that like in the spring things are starting to get green, but it's still not edible. Like it's not big enough to get edible. So I find I feel really depleted between March and May, which is when I tend to do like January to June is when I love doing sprouts and microgreens and that sort of a thing. But you have like a whole setup. Like
yeah,
you have a big
to-do
down there.
It's a lot of fun. It's kind of my happy place. But back to what I was talking about with like the kids, and having the tower gardens. My daughter, my oldest daughter, she's 5 now. We started teaching her how to grow at the age of 3, basically. So she was, you know, helping me out, like putting seeds in the rock wall.
Amazing.
I would be explaining how things grow, like what the seeds do. She would help me like water things, and see the little sprouts kind of growing in the germination dome, and then we take those and put them in the tower. She'd be able to like, you know, see how it's growing. So, you know, 2 years of doing that. She's 5 now, and she loves it. She knows where our food comes from. She'll run down to the towers. She'll pick we'll say, you know, it's time to like get stuff ready for dinner. We're gonna prep dinner. We need some lettuce. We need some tomatoes. We need some basil. So they'll go down there and they'll start pulling stuff off. They know what to get. When I say get me some lettuce, get me, you know, whatever. They know what the food is. And I find a lot of kids don't know what it is, where it comes from, like what it even looks like some of the time. And that I find
not even just kids, but some adults don't know. Like this, my kind of journey with teaching people really started because I overheard a little girl walk into Loblaws. She saw that sign that you see, like it says Farmers Feed Cities, and it was in the back of like a Honda Civic, you know. It said Farmers Feed Cities, and she goes, "What do we need farmers for when we have grocery stores?" I was like, no.
Yeah.
But then just the other day, one of my friends who has chickens and like fresh eggs had a conversation with a woman that said, "Oh, we don't eat eggs from chickens. We get ours from like Sobeys or Publix or whatever." And I'm like, you don't know that eggs come from chickens? Oh dear Lord. Like this is not good. This is not good. Like our food does not just come in a bag at the back of Loblaws. You know, and I really think that we're doing a bigger service by trying to educate people where their food comes from,
Yeah.
as opposed to just like, I mean, in the world of nutrition, most of my nutrition friends just like tell people what to eat. I would rather teach you what's in your food and where your food comes from so that you feel that educated and empowered to make the choice.
Yeah.
So I love that you are teaching your girls that from an early age. That is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, exactly. And
They won't be that little girl walking into Loblaws and be like, what do we need farmers for?
yeah, and as a parent, trying to get your kids to eat vegetables is really tough. So having them in on the process of like growing it, I've found that they are more apt to, eat the stuff because they've grown it. They've had a hand in it from the beginning. So it
They're
just,
a lot more excited about it too.
yeah, exactly. Like we kind of make a bit of a game about it, right? Like, the little farmers, and they're planning the food, and when it's time to like pick stuff, then it's, they become the chef, right? Just like that. So they get to.
That's so fun. And it's also going back to the flavor. There actually is flavor to it. And
Oh my
I keep
God,
thinking about all these little kids that won't eat their broccoli or won't eat their lettuce or won't eat something. And I'm like, honestly, if you got my stuff at the grocery store, I probably wouldn't eat it either. Like,
right? No, yeah,
sorry,
that's
but no.
the taste difference is just so like night and day. Like what? Yeah, like stuff you get from the grocery store. Like I'll, go buy from the grocery store if I really, really, really have to. For the most part, again, I'm growing stuff here. I'll also buy from other local farmers in the area. Help
Mm-hmm.
support them.
I love
Yeah,
my farmer's market.
I know,
The
right?
farmer's market. I feel like I'm like the mascot of our farmer's market. Like I am all about the farmer's market.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's huge. Like food sustainability is definitely something that, you know, is kind of like a hot topic right now too, right? Like people really need to get more control of where their food is coming from. Not only, just to, have the best stuff available, but also to, you know, eliminate some of like the food, like the footprint that is being,
Transportation costs and all that.
yeah, like the fuel, the transportation, the, processing, like all that. You're going to shrink that down and have more sustainability if you're growing yourself, and with those towers, that is a way for you to do it at home all year round. Like
In your kitchen. Like I could grow food right there.
yeah, exactly. I mean, that's, I think, in the future, that's what it should be. Like every house should have one of these tower gardens, the same way that every house has a microwave. It's just, it's, another kitchen appliance that's just there.
Yeah. Hands down. And that was when I started growing my own food, like in the backyard, that was the biggest kind of complaint, or we'll call it excuse, for my friends who live in Toronto in like a condo. Like, Megan, what am I going to do? I have like a 4 by 8 foot cement slab in the back, like what am I going to do? Well, with the tower garden, it doesn't matter whether you're Canadian, it doesn't matter whether you live in like Nunavut, it doesn't matter if you've got a week growing season or a 6 month growing season, you can still grow your own food. And what I found, especially after talking to that woman in California and her going on about like the drought is actually worse than we're led to believe, sort of thing, is like, what if California stops producing our food, right? What if we do stop getting it in? Or what if the transportation, even when the borders were closed and people had to wait, 2 weeks on either side and all those things, like, what if, right, we suddenly don't have those things? And like, do you have options? I know I do, but I want to make sure everybody has options. I want to make sure the whole toilet paper shortage thing doesn't happen with food, because
I mean,
that was insane.
it was pretty scary at one point. I remember going to the grocery store and seeing like the produce aisle was just like empty. Luckily, I didn't really need to pick up any of that stuff, but I mean, just seeing it and hearing from other people that don't have, the food security that we do with like towers and stuff like that in our own gardens. I mean, that could happen again. It could be another real life situation. So why not do something about it? Take that charge back and own it. I mean, it is dead easy to do. Honestly, like I know people that that can't, keep a cactus alive, but they have a tower garden. They're growing.
Amanda Stone, if she's watching, I know Amanda Stone cannot keep anything alive in her backyard garden. She loves her tower because it's almost like you can't, it's almost foolproof. Like it waters itself. It's on a timer. Like, there's so many times where I used to forget to water indoor house plants and they would die. And my mother used to have to take them away, like revive them. But with the tower, I just literally set it and forget it.
I'm guilty of that too. I've had a couple of house plants that like really looks really sad, but yeah, towers are easy peasy.
And you can literally grow just about anything, like other than something that grows on a tree, so like no apples.
Yeah.
Or like, I would probably find it hard to believe that anybody could grow like potatoes or some major root vegetables, but pretty much everything else. Like I've even seen people grow radishes, kohlrabi, like all sorts of things where I'm like, oh, I didn't know you could grow that in there, Like,
yeah, I didn't think so either. I know I've seen the kohlrabi grown. I have excuse me, I haven't seen any like the radish or beets or anything growing like that. But yeah, as far as like potatoes and corn, that stuff is easy enough to grow in like a veg truck on your deck or something like that. Like they have like potato.
You can grow that stuff in a bucket.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen ones that have like the sides like kind of roll up. It's like a shopping bag almost, and you can plant your potato and grow that and just like harvest out the side of it. And that's super duper easy again too. Like a little bit of water and there you go. But towers, like it's like you said, set it and forget it. Just don't forget it because you got to harvest at some point. Otherwise, it goes wild and crazy.
I did grow butternut squash in one, and I had 3 in the bottom row, and she took over. I will say, like they do, depending on what you want to grow. And I've grown just about everything. Like, I really love to experiment with gardening, and I really love to experiment with my food. I've grown red and pink celery in my tower. I've grown like multiple different varieties of kale or lettuce or all sorts of greens. But I've also grown flowers and strawberry spinach. I don't know if you've ever heard of strawberry spinach. It's kind of like a regular spinach leaf, but it also produces berries. And I would, if I had to describe the berries, I would say like if a raspberry and a mulberry had a baby and tastes like cotton candy, it was like that. Okay. But I was able to take some of my strawberry spinach berries to the farmer's market because none of the farmers had been able to successfully grow strawberry spinach. And I was like, oh, like it's hard? I didn't know. Because like it just grows in my tower. It was fabulous.
That's interesting. That's something I would want to experiment with. Because
we got so many seeds from this place in like Nova Scotia one year. I think I got like 10,000 seeds, and I was really experimenting with all sorts of different lettuces and strawberry spinach, like things that I had never heard of. And I was like, let's try white eggplants and let's try all these things. I've grown cantaloupe in the tower. I've grown like peas and cucumbers and tomatoes and like all sorts of things. It is, I love it. It's literally cool.
I got 3 cantaloupe growing right now too. And yeah, they're kind of taking over the bottom. Yeah.
And I find that kind of stuff is really hard to grow in Canada in the ground because it requires so much water and so much like warmth, right? So I found the first year we tried to grow watermelon, they were like this big and basically all rind. Like they didn't do much of anything. But then I grew them in the tower because they're able to suck up as much water as they really need. It was easy. Like I literally like, again, the set it and forget it stuff was fabulous. But it literally is that empowerment of, I don't have to go to the grocery store. Some people would ask me like, oh, how do you have time to garden? And I'm like, because I don't go to the grocery store. Like, I don't need to spend time shopping. You know what I mean? So like, how do you not have time to garden? Because if I, like, it's right there. I don't have to go get it. I don't have to worry about it becoming, like, I don't have to worry about my crisper drawer becoming that place where good intentions go to die. Because they're all just living in my tower garden, right? So like, I find I have less food waste because I don't have to overbuy because I may not know when I get to the grocery store again or whatever. And like I said, there's nothing that beats the fresh flavor. Like, I'm such a food snob now. I cannot go to the grocery store and buy like lettuce or spinach because I'm so used to getting it either directly from my farmer's market or from the tower.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm the same way. I thought it was because I like had that chef background and I was, you know, nitpicky about certain things, but no, it's honestly like when you can taste the difference, and it's just like, why would I spend money on something that tastes like you know, nothing?
Like nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. I'm also curious because like I know the last time we had a little chat about gardening, I was kind of pushing the idea of like there is no excuse, right? Like if you have a mason jar, for instance, you can grow sprouts. So
Yeah.
like there is no excuse not to get proper, like, for even just fresh food, because those types of foods are full of like enzymes and chock full of nutrients and all that sort of thing. So I would love for you to kind of, if you've noticed the difference between like people you've helped get a tower and like what their nutritional status was prior to growing their own food or any of that, like, have you noticed a difference in anybody's like health? Or because some people will claim like, oh, what's the difference? A lettuce is lettuce, or an egg is just an egg. And in my opinion, the eggs that I raised on the, like the chickens that I raised on the farm that produced eggs on my farm were nowhere near the quality at the grocery store. Like an egg is not just an egg. Lettuce is not just lettuce. It depends on the soil it's grown in, the materials it's grown with, and whether it's sprayed with pesticides and all that stuff. So I'm curious to know if you've ever noticed a difference between somebody's health prior to getting a tower and then after.
Right.
Or even just growing their own food.
I mean, other than my own, I mean, there was definitely a change in my own health. It has definitely.
Yeah, because you lost a bunch of weight and stuff, right? Like.
Well, yeah. I mean, between my wife and I, it's like over 50 pounds we've lost, and that's like over the course of like a year. And like, we're not like working out or anything like that. Just eating much better.
Speaking of Melissa, there's Melissa.
I know she just joined on as I'm talking about her. That's hilarious.
Her ears were burning.
Hi, honey. I hope you're having a great vacation. I'm not saying anything bad about you. Don't worry. No, I mean, I've talked to like a few of my clients that I've helped out with tower gardens, and all I can, like, the only feedback that I get is positive, right? They're super excited about it. They're actually, you know, growing stuff, and they never thought they could before. They always say like it is actually as easy as we claim it is. And now that they've been growing for a while, it's gone into like harvest season for them, and they say it does taste really, really good, and they're very excited. They said, you know, best thing that they've ever done was get themselves a tower. So I can't really speak on other people's, you know, health, just because I don't have that feedback. All I have is positive feedback from people. So
amazing.
Yeah.
And if there's somebody watching this, either now or later, that is kind of either on the fence about growing their own food, or maybe they're kind of like a skeptic about, like, why would I do that when I have a grocery store? What would you say to that type of person who's either on the fence of like, maybe I should, or I don't know if it's too much work, or like, what's the point?
Right. To that person, I would just say, like my wife just said, if she can grow, anyone can. Yeah, if you're on the fence, I say, you know, let's have a bigger conversation about it and find out what is holding you back. Because honestly, it really nothing should be holding you back on these things. If it's, you know, the cost of it, I mean, the cost could be a little scary for some people, but we have options that we can, you know, make it more budget friendly for you. And I mean, from my own experience, the amount that we have saved in our produce bill and the amount that we have saved in waste has definitely outweighed any of the initial
100%.
costs. Like it's mind blowing. Like the amount that we used to like throw away, like you said, the crispers were good intended to go to that. I remember buying spinach from the grocery store getting it home, and within a week you're picking out the slimy, like rotten stuff. With shower gardens, I mean, there is no waste because you're picking as you need. It's just
Melissa just said it pays for itself. It really does. Like, it's like one of those. It's not like renting a water heater. Like, you buy it and forget it, and that's it. It's yours forever, and they last forever. And I know people that have gone on like 10, 15 years with their tower. You can just grow anytime and every time, and that's one of the reasons I was so keen on it, was that it increased my growing season from like 3 to 5 months to 365 days a year.
Exactly.
Like, I legit can grow fresh greens all year, even if it was just microgreens. You can still do that in a tower, and it's like set it and forget it, and that's it. Like, you need lights if you want to grow in the winter, but still, like, and those lights, I actually really find it has helped a few of my clients who have like the seasonal affective disorder.
Yep.
Those lights actually help with the whole seasonal affective disorder.
It's true, because those LEDs are as, like, the Kelvins are as close as possible to natural sunlight that you can get, like, manufactured at like a reasonable cost. Like, LEDs have come such a far way, like, in affordability, and honestly, it's basically the same type of lights that I use in my hydroponic grow system for my microgreen farm. But yeah, like, honestly, and when I'm down there, I do feel much better, honestly. And yeah, you're right. Like, the light definitely helps that. But I think, a lot of like people that I talk to about these things, they're worried about, like, you know, the maintenance and like the time commitment it takes for it. And I just, like, I had a conversation with a gentleman today about it, and he was like, yeah, I mean, like, we like to go away on vacation and stuff like that. I would be worried about, it, drying up or, weeding it. I'm like, well, one, there's no weeds because there's no soil. Two, the home model has a flow system, so you can see with the water level. If you have, a neighbor that can come by and just check on it every day while you're gone for an extended period of time, it's really easy. Low maintenance.
And you don't really need to check on it every day. Like, if the water was full and you're just growing greens, like, I knew when I was growing 3 butternut squash plants and she went crazy, I might have had to fill it once a week. Right. But when I'm just growing greens in my house, I've filled it like once a month.
Yeah.
Like, if it's not super hot outdoors and it's not evaporating and you're not growing a bunch of water hungry things, it's really, really low maintenance.
Super low maintenance.
And I had 4 tower gardens set up last summer, and I actually went to volunteer at a community garden to help them pick weeds because I was almost bored with my garden because there was no weeds. And I find picking weeds is like anger management to me. Like, I love it. It's just such good therapy that I was like, oh my God, I need weeds. Like, I didn't realize how much I enjoy, like, playing in the garden. And mine was so self-sufficient and so, like, self-maintaining that I was kind of like, oh, well, I can go out and talk to them still, and I can go out and look at them, but, like, I'll go pick somebody else's weeds then.
I mean, you can come up here and pick some of my weeds, my soil garden in the backyard if you want. But yeah, it's the time commitment is very, very low. The maintenance on it is next to nothing. Like, other than harvesting what you need from it and starting your seeds for the next round, that's really all. Like, it's a no-brainer. Yeah,
I really love them. So what would you say, like, if somebody was to get started today on growing anything, what would you recommend, like, maybe the top 3 things to start with if they wanted to get started, like, right now? What would you recommend the top 3 things they get started with?
Like, just in general, or like on a
it could be a backyard garden, or maybe sprouts on the counter, or if they wanted to get a tower. Like, even if I were to get a tower, like, if you're trying to tell me, like, yes, I want it to, and I'm saying I want a tower, but I don't know what to grow, what would you say somebody should get started with? Like, what's something that's either easy or that's like prolific enough. Like I probably wouldn't recommend somebody get started with like celery, for instance. I found it took a long time to grow. And I probably wouldn't recommend broccoli also, right? Like it just takes so long to see something come out of it.
I would say like for your average, like, family, start with like stuff that you would eat the most of, like in like your salads, right? Like grow a little bit of lettuce, grow some herbs. Herbs are very, very easy to grow. You can start sprouted seeds, like you said, in a jar. That is very, very easy to do. So you can grow like your sprouts that way. And you know what? You can even like tomatoes aren't that hard either. They just take a little bit of maintenance, like pruning and whatnot. The infrastructure is a little bit more, but tomatoes are pretty easy to grow. Like they have enough light and water, they're easy. But
yeah, and stuff like that is mostly self-pollinating. Whereas I find as soon as somebody gets into like squash or some forms of cucumber, they don't realize there's a male and a female flower that has to be pollinated, especially if you're growing indoors.
Yeah.
People kind of forget that the bees and the butterflies do a lot of work. So it's kind of like, oh, right, I have to pollinate that.
That's something I had to learn when I was growing cucumber indoor for the very first time last year. Yeah, but I mean, with tower gardens, there's so many like resources out there. Like there's YouTube channels that have tips on growing. We have a little, actually that's a little. We have a really great Facebook community that we can put you into as well. That has amazing growers, tons of free resources. Ask any kind of question. It's already been asked. There's someone's going to point you in the right direction. So there's tons and tons of support with towers and what we got going on here.
And even just between you and I'm pretty sure we have a bit of information in our knowledge that if somebody has a question, they'd be like, what's wrong with my tomatoes? Or why is this doing that? Like, I know a bunch of even tower garden growers like Jill and Crystal and like a bunch of people reached out to me and be like, what's wrong with this thing? And I'm like, oh, those are just roots. It's looking for more, like it's either getting too much water or it's getting, not enough light, or like there's things where we could definitely help them kind of troubleshoot. Yeah. That sort of thing. So I know that there's a ton of resources, like not just on YouTube, but like within our community of so many people that have a ton of experience growing so many different things. Because I know that as much as I've experimented with, I have not grown absolutely everything there is to grow.
Yeah, me neither.
So yeah, I love that that there is such a big community of people with like-minded, I guess, like eagerness to grow and to learn about this stuff. Because like you said, like I feel like this is almost probably one of the more important things that we need to relearn is growing our own food. Because like honestly, I think that's what got people through the Depression era. It was like trading, like growing your own, but then also trading with your neighbor. Because if I'm growing tomatoes and you're growing zucchini, we can trade and make a beautiful, like spaghetti with zucchini noodles and all sorts of things. Like we could definitely trade so that I'm not overwhelmed with zucchini and tomatoes and then having to share with my neighbors. But I don't know if you've ever grown zucchinis, but like if anybody's ever grown zucchini, the whole neighborhood gets to eat.
Yeah, exactly. And something I found very interesting too is like down in, I think it's in Cuba. I think that was during like the missile crisis. They weren't getting any food brought in at all. So they had to resort to growing their own system, like their own food within communities, and also doing that food share program. So they're a big pioneer on that as well. And that needs to happen as well. Like not only like with tower growing, but community growing, right? Like share with your community. I'm going to be part of something coming up in September here in Barrie called Harvest Share. And it's being put on by a really great non-for-profit organization called Living Green Barrie. And basically there are quite a few community gardens around the city here. And they are taking a lot of like the fruit trees, apples and pears, a bunch of the other food that has been grown by community members. And we're all sharing it together. There's going to be a apple cider press where they're going to be fresh cider. I'll be there with Tower Gardens doing live demonstrations and talking about towers. So quick little plug, if you're in the Barrie area on September 24th, come out to the Harvest Share event at what park is it? Leacock Park, I believe it is. Yeah, we'll be there from 10 till 1. You can check it all out and learn about some sustainable growing.
Amazing. And on that note, if anybody is still like, oh, I couldn't even imagine growing some food because I don't know where to start, the best place to start is go to your farmer's market. Go to a local farmer's market that doesn't have stickers on their produce, okay? So make sure it's not just like a flea market with food. So make sure it's a real farmer's market and go ask questions. Like, that's how I learned about what kohlrabi is in the first place, because I was like, what is that weird looking thing? You know, and they're able to tell me, oh, it's kohlrabi, it's part of the brassica family, it's this, that, and the other thing. And then I've also, because I shop at my farmer's market, I learned about something called the CSA, or Community Supported Agriculture. And that basically means that I can pay my farmer to grow food for me, and then they deliver it to me on a weekly basis.
Yep. Yeah.
So there's all sorts of ways. Like, in my opinion, there is absolutely no excuse to not eat local and to not buy fresh produce for your family. And like, it does not have to be where your crisper drawer doesn't have to be where your good intentions go to die. You don't have to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars at the grocery store just to throw it all away later. That really breaks my heart when there's so much food wasted. And we waste, like, it's sad to say, but we waste almost 50%. It's a solid 40% of the food that's grown is literally just, you might as well just take it from the farm to the garbage, the dump, because it's literally wasted. And that breaks my heart, because that also means we're pulling minerals out of the soil. We're causing havoc and like wreaking havoc on whether if you till and you have to till up that soil, like, we're literally damaging our soil. And that's a resource, like water, like fresh water. Like, I feel like our soil is a resource that we're not going to be able to get back unless we do regenerative farming, unless we do sustainable and regenerative farming, because the whole monoculture, monocropped Monsanto industry is literally killing us. They don't want to feed, I'm sorry for anybody who like supports Monsanto, but I'm a huge negative. Yeah, I'm like, let's get rid of Monsanto, because companies like that, they claim to want to feed the world. They do not want to feed the world. They want to control the world's food. There's a big difference. If you're creating Terminator seeds that do not save from year to year, that is not about the health of the planet or the food system. That is about patenting Mother Nature.
Yeah.
And there is something so ethically wrong with that. And like, I got out of the pharmaceutical industry because of the ethics of what's wrong with that industry. And then I realized that big agriculture is also kind of like in bed with the whole, like, if we're fed by an industry that doesn't give a shit about our health, and then we're treated by an industry that doesn't consider food as part of our healthcare, like, there's a big problem. So I love that people like you exist. I love you and Melissa as just like people. I love what you're doing. Yeah, you guys are definitely some of my favorite people.
Well, you're up there in our books as well, Megan. You're one of our top friends out there, spreading the word about, food and healthy living. So yeah, we love that you're in this community, and what you're doing is pretty amazing too.
Awesome. Is there anything, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but is there anything else that you either want to plug? Shameless plugs, I'm all for it. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to plug or chat about, or any other last comments before we?
Well, again, that I did already do that plug for the event, the Harvest Share event.
Yeah, if you're in the area on the 24th, you said, right?
Yeah, September 24th.
Okay.
At Leacock Park. Yeah, from 10 a.m. to 1. And then also, if you're in Barrie area, Simcoe County, looking for some really fresh microgreens, you can check out my other Instagram account, City View Urban Farm.
And I will make you a collaborator on this, so please put that in the comments too. So when I'll put you in on as a collaborator, put the event at the 24th and your other Instagram handle in the comments,
sure,
so people can find you.
All right, cool. Yeah, awesome. So that's about it. Yeah, just fresh microgreens delivered every week to your door, or your restaurant if you're a restaurateur in Simcoe County looking for some awesome stuff. Yeah, that's about it.
Amazing. And I'm in the Kingston area, so if you want to know more about the Kingston area farmers markets that I do prefer, please reach out. I love the Memorial Center. Don't go to Market Square because I find that's literally just like went down to the Toronto Food Dominion and like there's still produce, like stickers on the produce. So it's like, I might as well go to Loblaws. So definitely shop at the Memorial Center Farmers Market. And it doesn't matter where you are in the world, if you want any health advice, real health advice. If you want to get off medication, I've literally gone, I've gone from farm to farm, and it's the PH farm to the F farm. And I love this stuff, and I definitely, like, my heart is in the helping of the healthcare industry. So I definitely want to redefine healthcare and get us away from chemical prescription medications and off the drugs.
Yeah, and actually that's something too. I've been able to kick some of my medications, just by eating, more fruits and veggies. Honestly, it's amazing.
Yeah, awesome. It was such a pleasure to chat with you today. Thank you so much, darling, for giving me your time. And I wish you and the kiddos all the best because I know that they're growing up with all sorts of nutrients in their body. So they're definitely, hopefully they can spread the word too, because it also goes both ways. Like they need to be able to share with their friends.
For sure. We're growing the future generations of
absolutely. Oh, good. And she said no more meds. Like I find anxiety. That's the big thing. Is like if you're eating processed foods and not drinking enough water, like of course we're going to be anxious. But the doctors always want to just prescribe more pills because that's how they get paid, the pharmaceutical industry. So that's why I got out of the pharmaceutical industry. So I was like, well, this isn't really helping anybody. And so I love that, Angie. That's so great. And I know Angie also grows her own. She started her tower garden and all that stuff. So this is definitely, we're changing the world, buddy. We're changing it. Even if it's just one tower at a time.
One tower at a time, that's right.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ellie. Enjoy your day.
Thank you, too.